Hi, I'm Doyan Beck, a PhD student at the University of Stuttgart. Welcome to my talk on execution-aware program reduction for WebAssembly via record and replay. WebAssembly, or WASM in short, is the fourth official language of the web designed for near-native performance. As WASM is a critical part of the web infrastructure, the correctness of engines which runs WASM programs is important. Thus, several bug-finding works have been proposed recently to address this problem. Usually, bug-finding tools are paired with program reduction tools to reduce the size of the discovered bug-triggering programs. There currently exist two industrial program reduction tools for WASM, namely WASM Reduce and WASM Shrink. However, we found a case where existing program reduction tools struggle. Commander Keen is a WASM program that triggers a wrong code JIT compilation bug in the WASM engine called Wizard. This program is 3.9 megabytes in size, which is not uncommon for binaries compiled from large source programs. As this is too large for a person to manually debug, we ran WASM Reduce, an existing WASM program reduction tool. Even after 24 hours of running, WASM Reduce output reduced program of size 1.3 megabytes, which is still too large for a person to manually debug. Why is WASM Reduce struggling with this program? Suppose function t is a bug triggering function of the program. That is, when the problematic WASM engine is running this program, the behavior diverges from the correct behavior while running this function. Even if we know this fact, we cannot just remove other functions which are not responsible for the bugs. For example, if we just remove function b from the program, the whole program would not run. For Commander Keen, only one function is responsible for triggering the bug in WASM engine, but 580 other functions are executed before, and we can simply delete them. Is there some way that lets us isolate just this one bug triggering function? So the idea that we call RR reduce is this. The targeted record and replay isolates only the bug triggering function. Record and replay is a dynamic analysis technique that records the program execution and replays only the interactions of the program with the environment. Targeted record and replay, also called selective record and replay, is a variant of this technique which applies record and replay to only parts of the program. In our case, we set the target as this bug triggering function t. As an outcome of our approach, the target function t is preserved as is. Functions c and d, which interact with the target, are substituted with the replays of themselves. And for functions a and b, which don't interact with the target, they are just deleted. When you compare this output program with the input program, you can see why our approach acts as an effective program reduction technique. Functions a and b are deleted, while functions c and d are substituted with the replays, which are typically smaller than their original functions. Now, let's take a quick overview of how our approach does the targeted record and replay. Our approach first identifies candidate target functions with heuristics and executes multiple iterations until it finds the reduced program. For each iteration, we do a three-step of splitting program, running record and replay, and combining program. First, as you don't know what function is the bug triggering function, we have to try multiple functions as the target function before we find it out. We utilize a heuristic to prioritize functions which are more likely to be a function which is a bug triggering. For example, if there's a stack trace on the left, we decide that functions t, c, b, and a are more likely to be the bug triggering function. Thus, we put them into a heuristic set and prioritize them over other functions. For each target function, we perform a targeted record and replay iteration. To do that, we first have to split the program into the target function and the remaining functions. To implement this in WASM, we make two new WASM binaries and JavaScript glue code to dynamically link these two binaries together. Then, we pass the split program into a standard record and replay technique. The record and replay technique records the interactions of the target function with the rest of the program and generates the replays of these interactions. For example, the interaction with the target function t and function c are recorded, and the replays are generated as function rc. The same happens for the interaction with the target function t and function d. Replay functions generated at the previous step is combined with the target function to generate a candidate program on the right. Finally, this candidate program is passed to the oracle to check if it still triggers the bug. If it does, it is output as a reduced program, and if it does not, our approach repeats the iteration with the other function set as the target function. Until now, I have introduced an approach called RR-reduce. We also have a variant of this approach called hybrid reduce, which applies the existing program reduction tool on top of the outcome of RR-reduce. It takes more time but leads to even smaller output. For the evaluation, as there is no existing benchmark, we constructed new benchmark called WASM reduction bench, which consists of 28 bug triggering WASM programs. We studied two main research questions, one on effectiveness and the other on efficiency. On effectiveness, we showed that hybrid reduce reduces the input program into 0.13% of the input on average, improving upon the state of the art by 3.4 times. On efficiency, we showed that RR-reduce reduces the input on 15 minutes on average, improving upon the state of the art by 33 times. This is a figure that shows the time-size trade-off between RR-reduce and hybrid reduce. X-axis denotes the average reduction times in terms of seconds, and y-axis means average reduction times in terms of percentage. As you go lower left, it is better. On 5 large input programs over 1 megabytes, you can see that RR-reduce is much faster than all the other tools, so it's on the much left side of the figure, while hybrid reduce improves upon the previous state of the art in terms of both effectiveness and efficiency. That is, it's at the lower left side of the previous state of the art, WASM reduce. Now, let's get back to our motivating example. Compared to WASM reduce, which reduces input program to 1.3 megabytes in 24 hours, RR reduce reduces this into 782 bytes in 13 minutes, and hybrid reduce further reduces this into 158 bytes. In summary, our idea is that record and replay can be useful for program reduction by directly targeting and isolating the bug triggering function. We implement this idea in the concrete program reduction tools for WebAssembly called RR-reduce and hybrid reduce, and empirically show that they outperform the current state of the art. Artifact, benchmark, and even this talk is free and open source. Thank you for your attention.